You're back. Good. What can I help you with? More lessons in basic reality? My favorite part of the day. Go ahead, ask me anything. The girl in the old lady rags looks like a sullen and rebellious member of a teen infraculture. Yes, you and I belong to the supraculture. We're common, the herd. The music on the radio, the food in the chain restaurant. She prefers a fantasy world, an infraculture with its own dress code and vernacular. It is an illusion, I'm afraid. I can't. That's how simple it is. One may dye their hair green and wear their grandma's coat all they want. Capital has the ability to subsume all critiques into itself. Even those who would critique capital end up reinforcing it instead. All right. What next?
Suddenly, you're not so sure you're part of the supraculture.
And what would that be? I can see that, yes. I dabble in those dark arts myself. Nothing infra about disco, baby. Those days are long behind me. And even in the early 30s, I would say I was more of a new girl. The new. A cultural era. And the name of the decade it ravished, the 30s. It involved lots of partying, as you might imagine, and champagne-colored everything. By the looks of it, that would have been, of course. You're much more grounded. A serious detective on a case called Reality. Speaking of, is there anything else?
What is all of this?
What world? The only one, I suppose.
The camera of her mind glides over the surface of the water.
Great bodies of water. Forest-covered surfaces. Clusters of light where the cities lie. You've seen the montage. We all have. There is a term of endearment they coined for it in the DeLorean century. Elysium. It does. There are those who would call a term of hatred that originates, like many such things, with the Mest petro-fascists. I am, after all, bourgeois and female. Hardly the perfect ambassador for the world. These are unimportant times, detective. For the big time. The revolution. It's quite easy. Every 100 years or so, our species gets together to decide what's next, who gets shot in the head, and who gets the mineral rights. It's a real kerfuffle. The liberals got the mineral rights. And by mineral rights, I mean everything. Liberals are usually middle-class people, detective. Or the remaining gentry. The beneficiaries of the pre-revolutionary arrangement. Some were rich enough to stay with the Constitution, with monarchy. Big mistake. Others bet on the revolution. They didn't win so much as survive. We were the last ones standing when the war ended.
We? She's one of them. Of course.
To foreign intervention. The coalition. Those people really took the mineral rights. The coalition of nations. Grad, Mesk, Vesper, Messina, Oranje, and Sieur-le-Clay. The moralists believe in keeping everything exactly the way it is. They believe in, at least not in the same manner and volume as the others do. This is their zone of control. They embolden the RCM with crumbs of the same law they took. Technically speaking.
The color of moralism is blue. The official motto of Moral Intern, or Moralist International, is a blue forget-me-not, a piece of grey sky. Unofficial. For a moment, there was hope.
Of course. Not easy to be moderate about head shooting in your line of work. The turn of the century revolution. The revolution began in '02 on the Isla. It wasn't a who, but a what. A pandemic of Zarat, a particularly virulent prion disease. It made people overthrow their governments. Of course not. It was a highly infectious microorganism that destroyed brain tissue. The actual causes of the revolution were material. The pandemic only provided the spark.
It was a funny time in history. They discovered transistors and rock music.
From Revachol and Grad? Not far. The world managed to cauterize itself. Mazel, why? You and I, officer. Our lives...
Something tells you her life and yours are not that similar. Maybe it's because she has a boat and you have...
A city-state divided into free market zones under the everlasting interregnum of the Coalition of Nations.
The clatter of typewriter keys fills the main hall of the reappropriated silk mill.
The zone of control is the third incarnation of Revachol, after the failure of the suzerain and the commune. Modernity. They developed the marvels of the inter-Islary communication, telematic milieus, radiation, colored...
51 minus 8 equals 43.
Time flies. The 20s saw a decade of urban war, west of the river leveled, offshore platforms in flames. Still, it's the 30s. Things settled down in the 30s. Revachol East transformed it.
All that untaxed income must have fueled the new. That can only mean one thing.
Yes, and quantitative easing. It was a market mirage, unfortunately. The 40s dispelled it. Welcome to reality, baby.
For her to be where she is, Wild Pines Group must have picked the right...
They picked the winning side. That's why they're here, and others are not. Perhaps it wouldn't have turned out that way had I been in charge. I might have bet on the king and let... I would have sided with the cannons. If you'd seen the calibers of the things, 10 of the 14 Indo tribes got it wrong. Feld, Kupri, Tricentennial. Those would be the communists. Generally speaking, 40 million people got shot in the head during the World Revolution. Oh, and the anarchists too. They shot them well. So well, one forgets they even existed.
She likes the totality of it.
Indeed. They piled them in mass graves in... Did they ever? Before they got shot themselves, they shot 2 million people. Yes. The Red Deluge. The Insulindian Deluge, they call it. Oh, lots of people. Even the king got shot in the head, or thrown beneath a horse, or drowned. Accounts differ. The real king abdicated and lived out a long and productive life as a venture capitalist in Grad. Yes, King Guillaume had a nose for bad PR. He ran before it. What is the expression? Him and tens of thousands of his wonderfully fascist kingsmen. It was a good question.
No, her first.
And I asked you, past-less detective of the Citizens Militia, what insight has acute encephalopathy given to you? So a quarter of humanity simply lost their minds. And how would you stop a prion, a complex folding protein, unlife, with the technology 50 years ago. Good hygiene. Really. A very moderate solution to an extreme problem. It's those sort of half... When they failed to step up, Marzov and his party stepped in. In this particular... They are what they are. Anyway.
Now's your chance. Ask her who she is. She won't get out this time. She won't maneuver her way out of this one.
I am the vilest of the vile. A traitor. I am an ultra. An ultra-liberal. It's a type of liberal. From the revolution. It's, not the moderate kind, haven't you heard? I am a nether creature of the Forbidden Swamp. One of those who pushed the king under a shit wagon and betrayed the revolution. I can see you thought I'd gone extinct. No sane person identifies as an ultra-liberal anymore. Not in broad daylight. You're a centrist at heart. A real moralist.
In her green eyes you see a mixture of truth and self-satire. Decades of guilt and pride.
I do hope so. I hope we're able to remain collegial despite it. Remember, when the dust settled, the Liberals were the only ones left to clean up the mess. By virtue of their survival, they were handed enormous power to shape the future. With due respect to our overlords, the eternal caretaker government that keeps Martinaise a monument to the efficacy of its artillery. I would not have relinquished sovereignty to the Coalition. Not here in Martinaise, and not in the Stella Maris or Delta Beep. Then for my daughters, we had an obligation to defend our sovereignty.
Dark orange flames reflect in her green eyes. An oil fire.
Perhaps.
You're no dummy yourself. And the crown on your head as you...
Yes. Whatever else I am, I'm also a mother and a wife. Now, shall we return to reality? Glad to have been of assistance. The little that I know. Anything else? Oh. A referral, you mean? I take it this was for someone in the RCM.
My liege, this woman has half convinced herself already. All it would take...
Oh my. A real door. That's good to hear, Detective. Police work is rarely...
Her bartering mind cannot fathom that you didn't ask anything in return.
Misinformation. This is all because we haven't shared information on the lynching yet. See? Already the adversary uses it to their advantage. Don't let him. Hurry up on that probe. The moment you tell me you're finished at the traffic jam, I will gladly tell you the company's side of the story.
She must really want you to look into the drugs. Otherwise, she'd tell you.
How benevolent. Hopefully they'll help you sort this whole business out. Well, I hope it yields something. Otherwise, you'll have opened that door for naught. Yes, that's the talk about town. I wouldn't have taken Evrart for a saber rattler. Was he surrounded by...
No, it was more like he wanted things to get worse. In secret, of course.
Or he wants you and me to believe he's calm and in control.
Of course. Politics is showmanship. He is constantly performing for us. And lying, too. I am sorry I don't catch more of his falsehoods.
I'll think it over, Detective.
Have I underestimated the Union's ferocity? She has to...
What you've said is quite enough. You've given me a lot to consider. And may... Of course, Detective. You can always drop by later, should something come up.
What's this? We're getting reports of normal, reasonable, temperate, political opinions somewhere in Mart. The air suddenly feels calmer, more transparent in a strangely tender way. Perhaps it's the hangover. Perhaps it's time to become a citizen of the kingdom of... It is not a place. It is a moment in time that can only arise in increment. History's greatest catastrophes have been brought about by people. That's the genius of Dolores Day. She recognized that progress is meaningless if its gains are lost because of instability. The kingdom is difficult to partly because humanity will need to discard many of the categories that define and limit it today. It's also post-industrial, post-ideological, and even post-sexual. Slow down, Mr. Reasonable. Did you miss the part about compromise? That's right. Remember, real democracy is just around the corner for Revachol. Shelves filled to the brim with crime novels featuring the supposedly stalwart
Oh, crime, robberies, murders, even sexual crimes. We're fortunate to have... You're a...
Note, crime fiction is a disgrace. And asinine, these books greatly overstate the excitement of police work, glossing over how long... What's more, they completely ignore the psychological hardships of year after year coming into contact. Not a single mention of all the stress this work creates upon the officer's family. Detective fiction just... You see Dick Mullen on the job. Get me Mullen. The stalwart adventures of Richard P. Mullen. Dick Mullen and the murder in the orchard. The sordid affair of Dick Mullen. A killing is declared. Dick Mullen in the murder house. Oh no, turns out he faked it to solve a case. Yes, there's also the dame who did it. Farewell, my Mullen. Faking death seems to be a tragedy calls for Dick Mullen. Another one with fake death. And, of course, Dick Mullen, the murderer. In order to catch a murderer, After all this, you still haven't found the answer to the one question that matters. Who is Dick Mullen? Your attempt to grasp at the answer fails. It seems very close by, pulsating just. Several maps have been... The maps look old and faded. Your eye catches a map of...
I'm sorry, officer. The map of Martinez is the only one available. They're quite valuable, though they might not look it. The map of Martinez is 9... Yes. Are you interested or not? Always good to be informed of your surroundings.
This bookstore is not strictly about...
I can't have you end up...
The dented yellow mailbox greets you. The box seems happy.
I've got nothing to say to you.
You see ahead.
Can I help you? Another thing. Yes.
The door is closed. Still. A mirror hangs on the bathroom wall. In it, your face, now without the expression. It's a mirror hangs on the bathroom. The fan stands still. The switch must be broken because the lights are on. The lights are off again. The lights are on. The lights. The bed is still cold from the broken. The bed is still cold from the wind blowing in from the broken window.
Here we are again, my broken bud. The waves are coming, carrying you away. But you're not cooperating. It's your disgusting body. Even through your sleep, you feel a vague discomfort suffusing it. Your back.
That pain in your right side is your enlarged liver, by the way. As for your kidneys, you've really but this suffering. It must have some kind of meaning. A story that will come out of it. Perhaps even a story that you will write yourself.
There's no dignity here. only reflections of your body mass. You're just stuck here, in the half-world. Could try looking at other people. Sure you do. They're all...
Some of them are. Some of them are nice. Others are scared. At least they're interesting. Each one has a process just like yours. People are beautiful, statuesque, parodies and tragedies of them.
What do you think you're doing right now? Coming to some greater awareness? Look at all these lights, blinking in and out of existence. Thoughts! You're just pretending that you're asleep.
Let it.
But it never seems to let you go, does it? Time to ride.
Put on your prettiest face for the masses.